Sanjay Dutt, so there's definitely a lot of possibilities if they go that route.
DJZ, they just signed. I don't know if you saw that. So EC3, I mean, we're talking 2019 WWE is 2012 Impact. I don't care how you cut it, man. That's what they're doing. The other thing I saw from All Elite Wrestling that I thought was interesting is that there are going to be no scripted promos. How do you feel about that?
Well, I've always thought that's the best way to do it, in my opinion. I mean, you can look, I don't know how it works backstage. I just, I've heard things, right? You maybe some guy has some bullet points or things of that nature and goes out and cuts his own promo. And I think it does two things, right? It gives a more realistic view into the guy and the character, or, the man or woman that's playing that character. And then two, you get over on your own accord, right? I mean, if you can't cut promos and that's part of the wrestling business, then, that's part of succeeding, right? So I think it's much better to have that as a way to determine maybe who is good or not good at it versus having, a team of writers that are scripting promos for people that all sound very similar in a lot of ways. And then you don't really get to differentiate between guys. So
it's funny. If you look at a guy like Jay Briscoe, when he cuts a promo, I don't think I've ever watched a Briscoe Brothers promo in which I thought Jay Briscoe was reading from a cue card. Where I don't even think they give the guy bullet points. I think they just say, hey, Jay. They don't even tell him how long he's got. They say, go do what you got to do. And when you listen to like a Jay Briscoe promo, and I'm using him as an example because to me, he has the best promos ever. So when you listen to Jay Briscoe cut a promo, he might repeat himself, like repeat his own words back to back to give himself a moment to talk about his next point. But that's okay because that's what people do normally. And when people get mad, not everything comes out perfectly clearly. You don't hit the enunciation on every, you don't hit every bullet point that you talk about. Sometimes you just get so mad, like you can't think straight, and that's okay because that's real. Whereas when you watch the promos, like, for example, another guy that can cut an all-time promo, Mojo Rawley, right? I mean, he's been killing it on Raw. That's like, guy's a stud, dude. Absolute stud. Bona fide, I forget what he was. Certified G, bona fide stud, right? That's the word. But no, it's like literally completely the opposite. So I think, being a huge fan of the NWA, your father is Dusty Rhodes. I think that's kind of what Cody's doing. And he's harkened back to a time when you had to be able to cut a promo. When you didn't grow up in a performance center, if cutting your promo was a strong suit, then you talked a lot. If cutting your promo wasn't your strongest suit, then you got over in other ways. And the other thing that AEW said is there's going to be a lot more focus on wins and losses. And there are certain people on the internet, I'm not going to mention any names, but there are certain people on the internet that are like, it's a fake sport. Wins and losses don't count. Oh, yeah? Look at Goldberg. Look at Brock Lesnar. Look at CM Punk's title reign. Don't tell me wins and losses don't count because the WWE has shoved 50-50 booking down your throat so far you forgot what it's like when people actually value competition. And that's something that a lot of other companies are doing right now. Don't bring up any spoilers because I haven't finished watching the Super Strong Style, but you look at Progress. You look at New Japan Pro Wrestling. Those are companies in which wins and losses are taken very seriously. And when wins and losses are taken seriously, and that's what makes a match important. When you have the same guys winning week in and week out, trading wins and losses back and forth, that match no longer becomes important. And that is one of the biggest issues I have with the WWE programming right now.
Yeah, I think what you're describing is it's a sport, right? Like, so if you look at sports, if you're watching an NFL game, right, are you going to want to watch a team that's 8-8, or are you going to want to watch a team that's 16-0, right? That's and because that team's good and that there's something on the line there and all that type of stuff. So if you present wrestling as a sport or in that capacity, you look at somebody who has won a lot of matches or doesn't lose very much. You kind of want to see if the person will lose, or something like that, like when Mike Tyson was in boxing and he won all those those fights and that type of thing. So, but if you just have it where it's not presented as a sport, and the wins and losses don't matter theory that WWE tends to subscribe to, what's drawing you in? If you'd have to be drawn in by the storylines then, and not necessarily care about the wins and losses. And if and that's a whole other argument about whether they're putting on good storylines or not. So
they're not, spoiler. But let me ask you something. I'm going to go over to Ring of Honor really quick. I know you were very upset when Matt Taven took the loss to PCO in his first match post winning the title. Regarding the War of the Worlds tour, how do you think they booked Matt Taven?
I think it was okay. The PCO. The thing was that the 2 title matches he had, the second one was against Mark Haskins, which was not scheduled, but then they kayfabed the PCO injury and gave that match. But that match was really good. But both matches kind of ended in a little bit of a schmaz type situation. So I would have preferred that he get a clean win over one of them, but that didn't happen. So I'm glad that he got wins, but they were a little bit tainted, as they say. So I think they could have done a better job with Taven over that tour, but I don't think that he came out of it looking weak. I just think that they could have done a better job, putting him over strong on one of those guys.
I agree. I like the way they had him win personally because he's a heel and he's got the group behind him. But what I think was very important that Ring of Honor did was they had Taven lose clearly the first match after he won the title, but not only did they have him win those 2 matches, they gave those matches time, and they were really good matches. Those are probably some of Taven's best matches that I've ever seen out of him, especially the Haskins match. So I think it was very smart to kind of quickly rebound and be like, oh my God, we got to show how good Taven is, show Taven, and that's what they did. So, but when you look on the flip side, you look at WWE, like the Iconics, they could not have. I mean, could they book the Iconics any worse?
No, it's very, they've done a lot of that over the years with champions that maybe they put the titles on and they don't really believe in them as the being the world champion, so they lose a lot of matches. I remember when Rey Mysterio won the World Heavyweight title on SmackDown, I think in 2006, he was immediately kind of booked in situations where he was losing all the time. And I'm not really sure what the mindset is behind that in terms of, if they think that it's a vulnerable champion, but he was a babyface. That doesn't really make sense to me. So when they do stuff like that, it just seems silly. Somebody wins the championship, whatever title it is, and then they continuously lose, whether it's, non-title matches or if it's a tag team, they lose in singles matches or whatever it might be. It just does not make the champion or champions look very strong. And again, if you're looking at people that you want to draw and draw people in, whether it's for television ratings or live event shows, are people going to want to pay money to see somebody who loses all the time or has a 500 record, or are they going to want to pay to see somebody who's unstoppable or looks very good in all their matches, whether it's wins or losses? So yeah, but WWE's model is very different now than it used to be, and the way that they're more into like the entertainment and the that just drawing people based off of like the event name, right? Like everyone goes to WrestleMania because it's WrestleMania, right? But you're not really going anymore because of what's in the main event. You're going because it's WrestleMania. Whereas years ago, you had to put somebody that in the top spot, right, that you felt like could draw people to buy and pay-per-views and things like that. So it's very different now for them than it was back maybe 10, 15, 20 years ago, even beyond that. But these other companies don't have the same amount of money and the same things at their disposal to be able to live that way. They have to have a program that's strong, and they have to have people that can draw fans to go watch live shows, whether it's, like you said, Ring of Honor or AEW or Impact or MLW or any of these other promotions. That's what they have to do. So it's a different model, and it's a model that I personally am more used to. So I'd rather watch something like that than shows that they don't really seem to care who wins and loses, and it's just like, well, it's Raw, so you should watch it. So
I agree. And the thing I think is important is in regards to wins and losses, like it's okay for there are ways to have a professional wrestling match where the loser doesn't come out looking like the loser. Like Mark Haskins lost nothing when he lost the PCO. Jumping to Super Strong Style, the opening round of Super Strong Style 16 this year, Kyle O'Reilly wrestled Chris Ridgway. And it was a phenomenal match between two very, very, very good wrestlers. Good submission, back and forth match. Kyle O'Reilly won. Chris Ridgway lost nothing by having a great competitive match that the fans appreciate. But they don't do that on Raw, and I can understand a lot of times they don't have the time, and they have some people that are just in like EC3, for example. I don't know if he's won a match on Raw or SmackDown. So, I mean, he beat Dean Ambrose, right? That was about it.
That's all I remember. Yeah, but the thing is, the times that they do something like that, and the two that jump out to me that I can remember in the last year or so, were when they had gauntlet matches, and on Raw they had Rollins work for like an hour
against Finn Balor.
No, I think it was some sort of gauntlet where they had
right.
Match after match after match, and he ended up wrestling like 2 or 3 guys over the course of an hour. And people were really into cheering for Rollins after that. And then Kofi Kingston did it recently on SmackDown, that whole thing where he replaced Mustafa Ali, and then he ended up going an hour and got all this respect, and that's catapulted him. So when you do stuff like that and you show these guys athleticism and let them put on a performance like that, they start to get this momentum behind them. But a lot of times they don't seem to focus on things like that for most of the wrestlers they have.
And that to me is why AEW exists. That's why Cody and the Bucks are taking that model, and they're going the other way. They're going to the old NWA model. They're going to the WCW model, which, I mean, if they could stay in their lane, should benefit them greatly. However, if they could stay in their lane, who knows? I mean, but as far as the roster looks right now, as I pull it up, you've got some of the best wrestlers in the world. And if you take the top 15 of, let's say, AEW and compare them to the top 15 to WWE, it's going to be real close. I mean, off the top of my head, I mean, Chris Jericho, Kenny Omega, the Bucks, Cody Rhodes, SCU. Then you have the internet darling like, the Joey Janela. You have Pac. You have guys that, either were in WWE and decided to leave, or that never were in WWE and made it a name for themselves somewhere else. The Bucks have how many millions of subscribers on YouTube? They have over 1 million for BTE, I think. Or it's sustainable to ask fans to pay $49.99 for a pay-per-view every 3 months, Joe?
Yeah, I mean, listen, people used to do it all the time, right? I mean, people, fans used to pay that every month when WWE had shows every month.
Yeah.
UFC, right, had charges or used to charge something similar when they were on pay-per-view.
70 now.
Yeah, so I think, but obviously, of the last couple of years with the WWE Network, and then the Honor Club and New Japan World, people are maybe used to not paying for pay-per-views. But I think if you do space it out enough, where it's a couple a year, you can convince people to buy them, especially if they could put on a strong television product that will draw people into buying it. Maybe even some more casual fans, and kind of try to draw them in. So I think if you do 4 a year or something like that, that's sustainable to charge $50 for each show, as long as they're putting out stuff that people want to see.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I mean, I think as long as you run the show like a sports show, and I'm sure they could do like network specials and stuff like that every once in a while, like on TNT or maybe even on TBS on a Saturday night, Sunday night, whatever it might be, a Clash of the Champions. I know Cody trademarked a bunch of things that the WWE let slip in regards to trademarks. I think it's completely feasible. And everybody's bitching and like, oh my God, $50. Bro, you paid like you up until the network, which is what, 4 years old now? Maybe 5?
Yeah, I think it was like 2013 or something that it came out, or 2014,
Okay, so
something like
5 or
that.
6 years, you know,